Hey everyone, welcome to Collector Chatter. I'm your host Miguel here, my co-host Charlie, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about the Stranger Things Funko Pop line, as well as giving our review of this latest Stranger Things season.
And if you're listening right now on podcast platform, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel where we have tons of other great content. And when you get there, make sure you subscribe, smash the like buttons, and comments on our videos. All right, now let's chat.
This is going to be more of a segment, just kind of a mixture of talking about certain Funko Pop line with Stranger Things specifically. And then we did kind of want to just chime in with the show, kind of have a conversation on what we thought about the show. And like, if you guys are not watching Stranger Things, what are you doing? But if you do watch it and you just haven't been caught up, it's been, I feel like at this point that you probably have watched it. We obviously know the new season had dropped, a couple months ago or a month ago, whatever it was. And then there was a part 2, which just recently came out, 2 episodes, but they were both, long,
Really
like
long.
movie style episodes, like about an hour and a half and 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is a pretty good size to end this season, which is season 4, correct? Yeah. Season 5 will be the finale, which is where they're going to end it,
season.
which I don't know if it's, because I see so many different posts, but I don't know if it's official, but I believe it's 2024 is what I was saying.
They haven't said
that's
it.
not real.
It's not real.
Okay.
The Duffer Brothers have said expect a wait.
Yeah, so it's gonna be
like,
because I had heard like a rumor that it was gonna be like a time jump in a way.
They've admitted
to
older,
that, but the way it ended, I feel like doesn't make sense to do that.
Completely agree. It wasn't supposed to be a time jump. The pandemic really screwed that, and if you are a Stranger Things fan and you've seen the new season, it's just so ridiculous how older the kids are, because much time has not gone by from season 3 to 4. And even in like of what like the show time, and they're ridiculously huge. It's like, I mean, they obviously grew up on the show, but this is the problem when you make a kid's show. And I do know at one point they wanted to film both seasons back to back, and then I think the pandemic obviously happened, and then Netflix was just like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah,
cost, I think,
so I wonder where that show's gonna go, but obviously we'll get into that. Because we will have spoilers in this, so like if you don't want to hear, listen to any spoilers, like check back in after you watch it, go back, definitely watch the show. But I guess we could start off with the line, or you want to start off with the show? Maybe would kind of make more sense to, and then talk about the line, because I don't know if we start talking about
let's talk about the show first, because then we can, when we talk about the line, then we can say like, we want this pop to come out, or
so right off the bat, like we said, so Stranger Things is one of my favorite shows. I'm just gonna put it out there myself, like as of all time. Like I love the show from the beginning. I was hooked. Season 1, I thought it was amazing, and as the seasons have gone, I feel like they've gotten better. Really, I think they've gotten the storyline has been awesome. I think the way they're filmed has been great. I think the acting is great. These kids are amazing. It's cool to see them all together. But I think like the Duffer Brothers and what they do and the stories that they're coming up with, and like kind of where they're going now, it's enticing me even more, because it's something that I'm like totally about. And now it's becoming more of a kind of horror driven sci-fi show versus where it was more of just a sci-fi kind of strictly show when it first came out. And I think that's what I loved about this season. It was very dark. It was pretty intense for the most part. There was actually even, I think the first episode actually was a pretty intense moment where they had to actually even put a disclaimer in the beginning of the show from, based off of some current events and things that have been happening. Obviously this has been filmed for a while now, but it's been intense. So it's definitely a lot more graphic. It's been more gory. Much more adult, I feel like. Yeah. So it's definitely more of an adult type show, even though it's with a bunch of kids, which is funny. Which I guess even from the beginning, it seemed like it was more tailored towards anyways, because it was based in the 80s. So like if you're a kid or you're young, like nothing really much about
I don't
the
get
80s,
why
or
like
you didn't
kids
live through the 80s anyways. So
really, like I don't even look at this like a show that kids are like, it's just so funny.
But some will do.
They do. What's funny, David Harbour, who plays Hopper, I saw him Like someone got a TikTok, he's like doing, a play right now. And, when they come out, sometimes after shows, they'll sign autographs or talk to people. And this little kid, like, I mean, like super little, is like jumping up and like screaming, Hopper, Hopper. And he has Hopper written across his face. And he's joking, he's like, well, that's my character on Stranger Things. And he goes, your mother lets you watch Stranger Things? Like,
Yeah,
it was kind of made like a joke about it. Like, how old are you? This is crazy. But kids do watch it.
yeah, it's true. And I guess the kids aspect will probably kind of,
Yeah.
the colors and, but like that all kind of probably, gets them really like into it. But when you really see it in deep story, I would say, especially the season 4 is definitely not meant for kids. I would say it's probably not something that kids should watch.
Kids would be
like in
scared
teens or something. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, my wife was even scared a couple of episodes.
Same.
So it's definitely pretty intense. But yeah, just overall, like I said, I love the show and I thought the season was great. I thought it just continued to pick up better and better. I liked that Netflix and other people are doing these like split season things. I think it's a especially when it's like a binge worthy show and they're dropping them in batches. I'm happy that they're at least splitting it up to kind of give us more time to digest this and really like want to watch it, versus when it all comes out in one season, you're done and then that's it. And then you got to wait 3 years or whatever it might be that for another one to come out, let's say, right? So happy that they did that. And then the 2 last episodes, I have no complaints on it in terms of them being longer. I just thought it was actually mentally didn't feel like it was as long as it actually was. Like I'm trying to explain this in the right way. So like it's definitely long and you're like, oh wow, like I was watching this for a while. It was like a movie, but I feel like because it's a show, you've watched 4 seasons and 4 years of episode shows, that even though it was a movie style like length, it still felt like a show. Like it didn't feel like it was like as long as it really was, if that makes any sense.
No.
Like when you go into watching a movie, it feels like a movie. When you're watching episodes on a show, something else is going to happen. And like, so I guess that was kind of part of it. But yeah, that's kind of my take. I rambled a little bit on my excitement, I love the show.
I'm on the same boat as you. Like, this is one of my favorite shows of all time. I mean, it's obviously a global phenomenon now, but I recommend it to anyone. I'm like, if you're not watching Stranger Things, you need to be watching Stranger Things. I personally think this is the best season that they've made from the show. Yeah. I think the first season was my favorite until this. Like, as much as I've liked every season, I don't necessarily think it got like better every season. It was just as good. Yeah. Where this one really just like stepped it up to a whole new level. And I think like there's that time I loved that at this point, it makes it look like they've had a plan all along, even though I know filmmakers don't, but like this final season really added to the mythology. You got, paybacks and callbacks from previous seasons, which I really liked. And I think we're just going to keep getting more and more of that when we head into the final season. And I thought like the villain of this season was on another level. It was just like amazing. And it finally felt like some of the payoffs of like, it's funny, even though I will say this is one of my favorite shows of all time, the Demigorgons and just like, everything coming out of the Upside Down ultimately got to a point, in my opinion, was like they're doing the same thing every season. Yeah. They're just changing it up a little bit, where this finally felt like a new villain and it made everything else better that I may have had complaints about before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's weird that you bring that up because like, well, not weird, but I agree because I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, like, we watched this just kind of not too long ago and it's still fresh in my mind and everything. And then I start to think about it and like I watch fan theories and videos and stuff like that now at this point that, it's no spoilers. So I'm just gonna watch, see what happens. But I start thinking like you just said, I'm glad that you said this. Like, what do you think this was written to be this way? Or do you think it eventually was changed and they like, it's weird because I trust that the Duffer Brothers probably knew this entire time this is what was going to happen. Like they knew that it was going to be like this and it was going to end up with this. But I could also see it where they kind of thought it was going one way and then they were like, all right, we got to change it because we can't just keep having Demogorgons in this like this whole world. Now let's flip it on its head with this other thing. But this is the whole reason why this whole thing was happening. And like I keep going back and forth on like which one was the one. And I think that regardless, even if I don't get an answer, I'm happy with that.
Me
Like
too.
not knowing like
I
what
think
side
it's
of
a
it.
nice in the middle. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think they knew everything that was happening. I think they probably came up with this idea ultimately while they were creating the show. But I don't care. I mean, that's the original Star Wars was done that way, and that's my favorite trilogy of all time. Like, anytime you, it's funny, like for people who like complain about when people don't do that, and not, this is not a Star Wars episode, but like a lot of people don't like the sequel trilogy because it was just handed off from director to director. They had no plan, and everyone who loves those movies are like, well, George Lucas didn't have a plan. But it's different between not having any plan and doing what I think George Lucas did for the original Star Wars trilogy, and now what I think the Duffer Brothers are doing from this. They have an idea of where the story's going from the
Mhm.
beginning to the end, and then they're like coming up with awesome ideas throughout the whole process of getting to that journey. So I
Yeah.
do think, and now obviously we're talking spoilers, I don't think the number one thing was just made up. Like, I think that was always probably part of their
Yeah.
grandiose story. And same with the Vecna character. It was just, when were we going to get him? Sometimes I think maybe they dragged a little too long to get to this part of the story, but I don't care because I just love
Yeah,
the
because
show.
I was gonna say like I think I think it's more like we said, it's maybe it's in the middle of both of those things. Like they were kind of just writing as they went along. They kind of had an ending in a way, and then they kind of tied it together. But I think it was, in my opinion, more leaning towards that they had that ending already. They just maybe didn't know exactly how they were going to get there.
Yeah.
Granted, this isn't an ending yet, but like if you guys have watched, obviously, like we said, there's going to be spoilers in this, but this Vecna character ties a lot of the Upside Down, ties into what the Demogorgons, like that whole world and what he was releasing. Like he was basically the whole mastermind behind this whole thing, which ultimately started with him being one of the kids as number one, where 11, and him had, an issue and confrontation or whatever. And that's kind of how this whole thing goes. So the only reason why I say that is because the payoffs and like when he's sitting there and he's telling her the whole thing and he's unveiling everything, every one of those made sense.
Yep.
Everyone was like, a wow, surprising, but not like not believable. Like I think that was so well done that maybe I'm just not giving them enough credit, and maybe they could have just pulled that out of their ass. But to me, that just makes it seem like they knew this and they kind of had everyone thinking something else. Because I want to say one thing. I know we're going to kind of veer around different places, but I want to say one thing. And I want to see kind of what you think about this. But as season 3 happened and it was ending, and that's when that's season 3 was when we thought Hopper was gone, right? Is that when
Correct. Yep.
how it ended, right? So then the Russian thing, and he goes over there. So when that whole thing started happening, and then season 4 starts, and it kind of goes back and forth between those two, places. I kept saying to myself, what is the whole Russian thing have to do with anything? Like
Yep.
in a way, not like have to do with anything, but like if like are they making these things, and then I'm like they're not, but are they just using them as like weapons? Like I was still very confused on that end, right? So then like when we get the Vecna character and we get when he talks about what happened or whatever, I feel like I still don't know what the Russia thing really had to do with all of it, unless I'm totally missing something.
No,
Do
yeah,
you get
I
what I'm saying?
think, no, I
Like,
do know
I
what you're saying.
understand like part of their thing, and I think that's the only thing that I'm still kind of. And again, we have another season, so obviously there's still a whole nother thing. But like, that's the only thing that I'm kind of like, because now we understood where Upside Down was created, and understand where the Demogorgons or whatever. So like now, I thought originally before we knew who Vecna was, I thought this was going to eventually get into a point that it was like the Russian, like, and like, they were doing whatever. But I feel like maybe they're just, I don't know. What do you think? What, like, do you know?
Well,
Like, what are your theories on
well,
that
I
stuff?
could tell you this. So I don't know if you're aware about this, and I'm not going to go in depth because I don't know everything, but the show is loosely based off like the Montauk Project, which is
Okay.
this
Yeah, I didn't
the
know.
show is originally going to be called Montauk too.
Oh, really?
And they kind of remember the exact reasons, but they didn't want it to be called that. And then I think they now have created a totally outrageous out there sci-fi horror story, but that was kind of like an inspiration for the test subjects and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. Where I do, it's funny you bring it up. I don't know if the Russian stuff's going to come back more into play, but this goes back to being like maybe it was going to be more important in the storyline until they came up with this idea. Because you
Yeah.
are
So
right,
that's the
like
only reason why I
yeah,
kind of like maybe they did kind of write this into that, but I guess it
and
just did such a good job that I was like, wow, it just seems like some of it must have been
yeah,
tied in.
because that was like they were that project was, they were doing experiments on children and like
Yeah,
mind
yeah, yeah.
control and stuff. And and like I don't know enough about it, but the Russians may have been involved in that, and they just continue with that
Yeah.
storyline until they changed it, because you don't need that anymore at all. Like it's not, at least the
Yeah,
story that
because
they've now made.
I know the Papa, and like that whole
Yep.
thing, and that like that has its world, right? But like to me, that world, and then like when we see Hopper at the prison and the that Russian world that he's in, and they're taking demogorgons and feed, have people basically feed to them, and they're like putting them in like whatever. Like that's where I feel like I'm like, are they just it just happen to be people that are taking advantage, and this was a way to kind of like introduce another set of characters and like
Yep.
get Hopper somewhere that he had to get back from, like like maybe that's what it was, and I guess maybe I just was overthinking it. But that was one thing that I was kind of just like with like because in the beginning, at least they hint towards like that being a major thing, and
Yes.
then obviously Hopper disappears, so you think okay that's a super major thing, but then we get back more into the just the town, and now this upside down in that world, which is where 11 came from with this guy Vecna number 1 whatever. So that was the only thing that was a little like I'm
Were
wondering,
you
but I mean we
like,
have a whole nother season, so who knows where it's
were
all
you,
gonna go.
yeah, we don't. Speaking of Vecna though, on the number one, and like I'm being genuine when I say this, and I'm curious your opinion. Like I like called that entire twist. Like did you see that coming? When we met that character, I was just like, this guy is number one. And when he was like teaching 11,
I
like
did
that's
not. I did
um
not. I had a feeling he was like a little out there and would be something that was going to be like a because when if you guys don't remember, like obviously when they're showing a lot of this, it's like flashbacks, and 11's there as like a little kid again, which by the way, the aging stuff that they did for her was like amazing. The fact that she
insane.
looks like a little
And
kid.
not only that, she wouldn't cut her hair this season. That was a wig.
Oh, so her hair's not even cut. Oh wow.
No,
See,
even
I
when it
thought
was
about
like
that, but
the
for
not the
real,
de-aging stuff, when it was
yeah,
her in those
when
scenes,
she's back
which I
with just
thought
the
that
short hair.
was, they did an amazing job.
That's crazy. See, I didn't know that. But yeah, her looking little again was hilarious. Because I'm like, oh my God. Because then you don't realize how young they really were in this first
It's
season. And it's
ridiculous.
funny because I just recently saw a video on YouTube. It was a bad lip reading, which I don't ever watch any of those. They do it with the
Yep.
NFL a lot of times. And I did one for season 1 of Stranger Things. So it's an old video, but obviously Stranger Things is popping up everywhere. So it
Yep.
popped up on my feed. And I happened to like watch it. And I was like, Mike specifically, I'm like, these kids were tiny in season 1. Like they
Tiny.
were little kids.
It's oh God,
But it's funny,
Mike.
yeah, he looked ridiculous. But it's funny to see them like growing and everything. But either way, 11, yeah, she's like younger in these because there's flashbacks and stuff. So like I had a feeling like I was thinking more he was tied towards like the Papa type character and was
Yep.
someone that was like that. I didn't think he was like someone in there as one of the kids and being someone who was originally, whatever. So like that I didn't think of. And I think it's because I had my mind in like other places that I was more focusing on. And I
Yeah.
was like,
I
how are they
still
gonna
think
get
it's
Hopper back?
amazing
How are they
though.
gonna like those things, right? But yeah, that I didn't.
Okay.
I
I was
didn't
just curious because part of me is like, I do think way too much about these types of things, especially when I'm watching shows that I'm obsessive with. Like sometimes I know it drives my wife crazy. Um, but I mean, I did like I was calling that in the show, and then when it paid off, I was pretty like happy though. I thought the entire way that storyline was played was like amazing. And then even I loved the final episode of the first part, even though once again, I'm not just saying this. I'm like, dude, this is Vecna too. Like, this is what this guy is. And I just thought it was so beautifully put together, the story, even if I didn't think the twist was as good on myself. I think it was a really great twist in
Yeah.
general for the show. And it really, I loved that character. Like,
No, the character, I was gonna say it. So the character specifically, I thought was amazing. The actor is freaking great, and now he's popping up left and right on my feed. And I don't know if you knew this, but he's actually a musician. Like he sings,
no, I
and
did.
everything, which I didn't know that beforehand.
It's funny. He was casted as one of the leads in the first Game of Thrones spinoff that they shot a pilot for, which got got canceled.
Yeah, the first one that got canceled. Yeah.
Which
okay, maybe I've seen his face.
Led him to get
looked
this.
familiar seeing him.
Have you ever seen
his face?
Have you ever seen the Twilight movies?
Yeah. Well,
he's in that
super long time ago,
yeah.
But I don't remember. Oh, he's in it?
Yeah. He's got like people are like girls are going nuts over his character, which is just like hilarious.
Yeah.
Even though I've heard he's an absolute creep and he's just like his character in the show.
Really? Yeah. I mean, he seems a little like odd, and I've seen interviews with him and stuff, like, because like I said, he's popping up everywhere, and like just like his whole mannerisms and stuff are strange and weird. But just to kind of go on into the show though, like his character I thought was amazing. And I also love that it wasn't even just like his character is who becomes Vecna. I love that he himself, the actor, was Vecna in makeup.
Me too. When I found that out that was like he was playing him, like that's was great,
amazing.
Too.
And the voice was also him.
Yes, everything about
completely, because I've seen him recording like the actual deep Vecna voice, not just his voice, because he actually realistically has a super strong British voice, British guy, of course, like most of these damn actors are. And then his character, as I can't remember what his real name was,
Henry.
Henry, as well as him as Henry, he was kind of like creepy and he had like kind of this weird voice, which wasn't like his, but then his Vecna voice is a whole different like demonic voice, and it's like, damn, this guy's pretty good. That's why I said like acting wise, I thought he was great.
He was great.
He definitely played these roles really well. The makeup was amazing on that. That's like a whole nother thing. Like we can get into the makeup and special effects, and like I think like they don't do too much. Like the Duffer Brothers probably have a handle on this to like figure it out to make it like it's obviously sci-fi, it's fake, and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, but they control it enough that like you're like you're on the edge of your seat because you're believing something's gonna happen, and you're not like, it's not like one of those shows that you're just kind of like, oh yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like no, you're like really like in it. And yeah, I think it's amazing. And I honestly like, I don't think I've ever like gave them as much credit as I should have from the beginning, because like of how much they can do and what they're doing right now.
I want them to make a Star Wars or Marvel movie so bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about this off air before, but they're rumored. I don't know if it was rumored or official, but they're gonna take on a project to do Death Note.
Yeah, it's live official.
Action. So that's, to me, that's amazing. Death Note is one of my favorite like anime stories and anime shows of all time. And I'm not like a huge anime person, like Dragon Ball Z and some of the like OG ones, but Death Note hooked me. I thought it was an amazing story, and I think that's what's for them to have already an amazing story and what they're going to do with it. I'm like super excited for it, and seeing more of this, like very, I hope it's like the style, but more horror, serious, like what they're doing with the latest season of Stranger Things. It just makes me like even more excited, because there was a live action movie made of Death Note and it was absolute trash. Don't watch it, but definitely watch the anime. I think it's on Netflix. Actually, you can watch the anime, the actual episodes, the animated version. It's amazing. The story, if you've never watched, I don't think you ever have.
I
like,
never have.
The story itself is like awesome, and it's like it's such a cool concept that like I'll
definitely watch it. Duffer Brothers.
Yeah, but like if they do something, I think it's gonna be pretty badass. And I don't know if it's a show or a movie or whatever, but regardless of what it'll be, I think it's gonna be sweet. So as they cast, I'm sure they will cast some amazing people. They clearly are great at that as well. But yeah, I mean, overall, we both obviously love it, but what's gonna happen or what's going on, like I don't know. I
have a few theories.
I think so I have some theories, but I'm also kind of wondering, because what we've heard, we were talking about before, is that there's going to be some sort of time jump, or if there's not a time jump, there's it's not like the next season's not officially going to be coming out very soon. Like it's going to probably be another gap. Obviously, like we had, pandemic definitely hurt the fact because in the first 2 seasons they came out pretty quick, and I think it was like Halloween time, then it was like Fourth of
Fourth of
July
July.
time, and then there was like another one, and then we had a gap, and it was a while before we had no Stranger Things, and then obviously the pandemic came back. But
So many
now
people were talking like, who cares about Stranger Things anymore? Which I never was that way.
it was
It's
literally,
hilarious
it
how
felt like it
like
was gone for so long, but
I think
now
it's more
it's
popular than ever.
absolutely. It's so crazy that like it blew up again, and I think it was all our, people that loved it and watched it already, they just loved it. But I think the FOMO kicked in with certain people,
Yeah.
and they decided to start watching the show and like jump in, and you can binge to the beginning and then catch up, and that got popular. I mean, I still think this is crazy, but the whole Kate Bush thing
I
is
wanted to bring
still
that up. I'm happy you
baffling
did.
to me, because that's a whole nother thing. And if you guys don't know, obviously Kate Bush was an artist back in the 80s, a long time ago, and has a song that's been out forever. Never, it was whatever, maybe popular back then, but nothing out of this world. And because, in my opinion, one of the most epic scenes and like times, like the finale had the most epic scene, I think, but one of the greatest scenes, obviously, with where that song played, Run Up the Hill, and it blew up where now that's like a top hit. She's never been in the charts. She's like, it's
No,
like a
she
number one
has
song.
though. But here's what's interesting. It's crazy about it. She now holds a record in the Guinness Book of World Records, the longest gap ever to be at number one for one song, and then like 30 years later to be number one again. It's insane. So like it was popular in its time, but obviously not popular, like this.
But didn't stay popular. I mean,
no,
like
exactly.
even like
no
like
one's
other
cared.
80s songs. Like there's other 80s songs that like till this day it's played throughout the year. So you're like super, like, oh, that was amazing. But it's funny because it's not like it was ever like a bad, like it's a great song. It's just something that I feel like just got covered and no one remembered it.
And she's now making ridiculous royalties off of this song that like she hasn't made money off of it forever. It's even more crazy. I read an article today that there was supposed to be a Kate Bush song, and I have not seen Thor: Love and Thunder yet, but Taika took it out of the movie and changed the song because he's like, Stranger Things screwed me over, and he changed it like last minute, which I found like to be hilarious.
That's like a big deal. That shows you like how big of an impact it had. And it's funny. It just like blew up, and it's on videos and TikToks, and
it's
just
amazing
like,
though,
it's a different world now, obviously, with that kind of stuff.
It is, but I loved one that like, because I'm sure you've watched the videos, right, about it, but like how the Duffer Brothers like pitched her, like she doesn't give her music out easily to be in stuff, and which is another reason why they're just, in my opinion, geniuses. Like music is such a big part of film that I think is underrated at times, and like this was a character, essentially this song of the show, and it was just so like amazingly done, which is why the song is so popular. Any song that they picked to be, Max's song would have blown up. But this was just, it just was so good, and I loved that aspect of the show. I thought it was so creative.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I love that they stick to the nostalgic part anyways, though. Like they could have done maybe a little bit newer song. Like they really stick to the times. Like you think you're in that age or in that time, and they find different songs. They've done other songs in different episodes, but like, this was the one that really stuck, and it was a big scene, and it was like, emotional, and it was all that. But it was just like a perfect type of song. Like they obviously picked it perfectly, like clearly this was a cool song, but it was perfect for this moment. And it's interesting that you said that she's tough with getting, like getting her thing out. But I think now it's like everywhere. So like she's obviously probably getting so much money that she is totally giving it up, because this is a completely random thing. But they this past Friday, because every Friday songs come out, they just dropped an album from this it's a rapper named Ransom. Not like a super popular, kind of like a pretty decent name, which he has a song, and it's featuring Joe Budden, who more people would know of, which is funny because Joe Budden doesn't really rap. So like when you first saw this, he's like now retired. I thought it was like an old song, and I'm like, maybe it's technically it could still be an old
Yep.
song because obviously Run Up the Hill is from the 80s, but they have a sample of the song in it. So she obviously somehow cleared it, whatever. And it's like, it's not called Running Up the Hill. The actual song is called so it's Running Up the Hill, and then what's the parentheses? It's like
I can't think of it.
Not Make a Deal. Is it Make a Deal or A Deal with God or whatever? Because the
A
original
deal with
song
God.
was
It's a deal with God.
the original song was supposed to be just called The Deal Gotha Gets, and they made her change it to Run Up the Hill. I was like hearing a story about that. But this song, the rap song, it's called like Make a Deal. Because she says that line, make a deal with God. So like it's called Make a Deal. And it has her sample. It's not her, it's like the beat, and then it's like a guy kind of singing it, like in a slower pace, but kind of similar. And I'm like, so it's obviously still she's getting paid off this, but it's just funny to think like what's happening with it, and it's everywhere. I mean, that thing is like all
Everywhere.
over the place now. It's like blowing up. Man, the song is awesome, but it
is.
even
I love this
was
song. My
it
wife's
was a
like,
song
stop
they
playing that
used
song
for the trailer for the 2 episodes in the second part of the season,
which was brilliant.
Which
that
is
trailer was
crazy
amazing.
that they did that. Yeah, so like that was like they're like really running with that, running up the hill with that, but but yeah, that's a whole nother part I think of this season that's like so cool, and like it makes the show even more exciting. But yeah, what are some like your theories on?
So I have a couple that I go back and forth. One's like an outlandish theory, and the other one I think is something that is probably definitely going to come true. I think Will is going to come full circle, and he is going to become like the villain of the final season. I thought the last shot was just like so chilling. How he still could feel Vecna, and he was with his back, and I also think he's going to ultimately have to go up against 11, and Mike is going to have to choose what he does in that situation. Because they obviously played that up like so hardcore. I mean, I don't know how you don't realize this, because I've seen some people be like, it's like, Will in love with Mike. I'm like, yeah, he's in love with Mike. If you don't realize that, like, I don't know what show you're watching.
Yeah, I know. A few episodes in, like Sing looks over to me, my wife, and she's like, he's in love with Mike, and like this whole time, like, and I'm like, I like was getting it too, but I didn't say it, and like she said it, and I'm just kind of like, and then like,
I
as it went
felt
on,
like,
I'm
they've been
100%.
playing that up. It's like I've felt that way since the previous season when Mike was like basically like, I have a girlfriend, and he was just like, why can't we also be together? And he's like, it's not my fault you don't like girls. And like Will was just like never like growing up, and like it's kind of when you could have taken it like, okay, Will is just at a different phase in his life, but I felt like they've have his like storyline of obviously he'll probably come out of the closet in the final season, but they've done it really tastefully. Like the scene when he is basically explaining to him that he's like the heart, when he shows him that painting, and then he's like
in the car,
crying. And I loved how Jonathan, like the shot of him like looking through the rear view window when they were driving. Like I really like the Will character, and I think I like that it's going to come full circle. So what I'm getting is I do think he's going to become a villain of the final season.
Yeah.
But not by choice, but I think Vecna is going to need a new body, and he's going to have some way to like make him the host.
Yeah, because it was funny that you said that you love the Will character, because I used to hate the Will character. So from the beginning in the first season, I was just like, not that I hated him, but like one, in the first season, he wasn't really around much, remember, because I was using upside down and he was like out and whatever. But then I always was like, oh my god, this damn kid is like messing all this shit up, and I like was blaming him, and I was like, oh, it's whatever. And then he comes back, and then he's kind of like awkward, and he's like weird, he doesn't fit in, and then like the whole time I'm like, there's got to be more.
I like that he was
what's
like
going
affected
on?
so much by,
but then it got like more serious, and you see a little bit more, and he's more involved, and you see why. And I was like, okay, he's really tied to this, and it's like, and in this season, I thought it was amazing. I totally love this character in this season, and I think him maturing in general and growing as an actor and a kid and whatever. I think he's like getting into that role really well. And I thought the same thing. I was just like, he's obviously still connected to this. There's still like, because from the very beginning, he was like the one that like this happened to, whatever, right? So you had to know that like it wasn't just over. Like he was somehow gonna still be attached. And then like when, yeah, like you said, you see him still feeling him, you know that he's still somewhat to it. And then I don't know if you saw the shot when he's on the hill where his nose is bleeding.
Yes, it was awesome.
So that's another thing where you're like, okay, so he's way more connected than maybe we realize, or not that we realize he's like still connected, because
Yes,
we
and
obviously
it's
knew
kind
he
of
was
been
connected,
hidden.
but like, yeah, like it's still there, and it's obviously something that no one else, it seems like, knows or like realizes, because every time something would happen, whether it was his neck or whether it was blood, he wasn't like, no one seen him or no one knew.
Yep.
You know, he kind of was just like, oh my god, except for when he looked up and everyone else looked up, and then, you know, you just see whatever you see in the clouds and all that stuff. So I have a feeling that he's gonna have something. I don't know if exactly like what you're saying, like he's gonna be like, but it makes sense with the whole host thing, because yeah, Vecna's gonna have to figure out, because obviously Vecna's not dead.
And
Like
they
we know
made such
that.
a big deal that like he is really wounded, and like, I mean, I'm like just reading into the lines of like what they could be doing, and like I now believe like the Duffer Brothers have sprinkle things throughout that give us payoffs later, and I'm just
Yeah,
banking on that could be one of the payoffs.
yeah,
I don't
because
know if I
if it,
mean like full-fledged villain, but like he is going to unfortunately be like bad.
yeah, which is a tie to it. And then one thing I would say is, this is a theory, and this is just like based off videos and like a fan theory type of thing. But I was like, wow, this kind of makes sense. And obviously, when it's a good fan theory, that's usually what happens. You believe it, but may not actually
Yep.
come true. And it's with a character that I'm surprised we haven't even mentioned yet, but it's the Eddie character, which obviously was a super popular character this year from the beginning, from episode one, or I believe it was in episode one at least. And
Yep.
you see him as a character, I was like, this guy's cool. And I felt the same way with Billy. When we got introduced to Billy, I was like, oh, this guy's so cool. He's such a badass guy. He's a great character. Like the kid is awesome, whatever. And then he dies. So now it's like Eddie is like the new Billy in my eyes. I'm like that type of a character,
Yes.
side character that becomes so much bigger than, you know, he probably should have been. And now he's like loved, and obviously becomes a hero and saves people and that kind of thing. So like the Eddie character was great. But like I'm hearing theories and I'm seeing things, and it seems like it could be something where he
Comes
isn't
back.
dead,
Yeah.
and he could come back
As a vampire.
and and be something that is connected in taking down
Yeah.
Vecna, where he again could be the one, like, because it seems like 11 can't do this by ourselves.
Correct.
I don't think it's going to be that. I think whether it's her friends and the kids figuring something out, or Hopper or whatever it is, obviously maybe all of them, but I could see another something like an Eddie coming back, or even a Will. Maybe something does happen with him, but it's the other way, where he's
Yeah.
who has to kill that thing. I could see that happening, because I don't think it's going to be 11. I think 11 kind of has done her part already, and I
I
think
agree.
this new season is going to be something else. She's going to be involved, and there's obviously going to be, you know, that whole aspect of it, but I could see something completely like
Going off the whole
extra on there.
Eddie theory, though, it brings me to my like outlandish fan theory that this is all an elaborate game of Dungeons and
Yeah,
Dragons
well, I
by
was
the
gonna
main
say the
characters.
connection to Dungeons and Dragons is where I see the Eddie thing being, because there's already been connections to that.
But
What
I
about
mean that
Vecna? And
like
we
they
know
are
that
playing a game
the entire time.
the entire time.
I would hate that.
I know. I'm very indifferent if I would like it or not. Dungeons and Dragons is just such a big part of the show. And I read, you know, the Duffer Brothers are huge fans. It's just like so big. And it's kind of like, I don't think it needed to be a major part of the storyline like all the time. And I could see this is legitimately the major campaign that they've made.
Yeah. But I could also see it being that, like, because I look at it, this is the way I've seen it from the beginning, where
Yep.
why I think they're that. So, like, obviously the game in the beginning, and you see the kids, and it's what brought them together, and they played and they whatever. But I could see where like the world is kind of somewhat living that game, like
Yep.
but where they're living within the game, and like they're like how they know how to defeat certain things is because of the game, and like certain characters are tied to the game. Like that's how I've always looked at it.
Which is
Where
probably a more realistic theory.
well, because like I don't know, do you watch Riverdale at all, or
I,
ever watch Riverdale? So
yeah, I do.
that
Yep.
kind of got into this realm. I stopped watching it, but I know it kind of
Same. It got so
tailored
bad.
into the realm of the game, of like that game, and
Yeah,
then
the gargoyles.
like then it was like a game, but then it was starting to be real. Like I could see, I initially that was the first thing I ever thought, like, okay, it's kind of tied to a similar thing to that. So I feel like that's why. And like, yeah, maybe there's a payoff in a way for that, but I think I would hate it, and I think a lot of people would hate it if it was ultimately them in a game. But yeah, like you said, if it's an outlandish, go on 100%. Yeah, that's a type.
But I do think Eddie's coming back. Honestly,
say.
if he wasn't coming back, he's coming back anyway. He's way too popular. It's exactly what they did with Steve. Steve was supposed to die,
but they didn't do it with Billy.
I don't think Billy's as well loved as you like Billy.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the character.
I mean,
but
I don't think he's as much as like an Eddie, obviously, because
and
he was definitely more of a bad guy. Yeah. He wasn't like a hero. He wasn't a cool kid. Yeah, but he was just like more of like the villainous cool character on that end.
Correct.
But I do think he was important because Max now is becoming a very important character.
Yes.
And a lot of it tied from Billy and what happened and how that whole thing. So that's like
who would you say your like favorite character of the show is, and who's your least favorite character? And it doesn't just need to be this season, just in the whole show.
Well, the whole show, I would say, is probably Steve.
Okay, and me too.
Dustin's close, but I feel like this season Dustin wasn't kind of. I feel
like
this
sidelined a little.
Yeah, he wasn't really as high up. In the beginning, he was very like much the favorite kind of guy, right? Steve, I feel like, has been consistent enough to say that he's one that I love throughout. And then least, I mean, I don't know, maybe Joyce. Like
it's just so funny. I'm very passionate that I want to punch Mike in the face. I hate that character. Maybe
Mike have been up and down. I think
I loved him in the beginning of the show.
I don't like,
and it's ironic that him and Millie Bobby Brown, I think, have been the most successful from their fame from this show.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he went on to do Ghostbusters.
He's in Ghostbusters
movies and stuff,
and he's in it. But I don't like. He has, and this is maybe being. I'm not being mean. Like, he is just not grown into himself. I don't think he's that good of an actor anymore as he was when he was a cute kid.
Yeah,
and I just don't like him, and I don't like his character. Like,
I could really see
it's weird.
Like him and Will going in complete opposite directions from season 1 to season 4. Like Will starting slow and becoming now a better like character. I see that more than Mike. Mike is like kind of going the other way, in my opinion.
And then I agree
with whereas like a Steve has been straight across the middle, 11's been straight across the middle.
Steve,
I think
to me,
his went down though.
Is like one of the best character arcs in like any modern television.
That was her name.
Oh, I love her. My
Steve's little
freaking
friend, the one that works in the shop. She's amazing. I thought she was great.
So good.
Yeah, she was great.
So good. Ethan Hawke's daughter.
Is it? Yeah, I did. I did.
Uma Thurman's daughter.
Uma Thurman. I was gonna say she looks just like Uma Thurman. Yeah, I forgot.
She's amazing. She's amazing. The cast is just so good in general. And I loved the pizza dude.
Oh yeah, have you called the number?
I have.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's just funny because I don't know. Do you still want to keep talking on the show, or do you want to get into the Funko Pop part of it?
I completely forgot we were talking about the Funko Pops.
I only want to bring it because how does he not have a Funko Pop?
Yeah. I get. I mean, we're pretty much done with the show, so like, we don't have to say too much about the Funko Pop. This is definitely a longer episode. We've been gone for a while, but just to kind of jump into the Funko Pops. Obviously, they have a line that has been coming out since the beginning. We have season 1, 2, 3, and then 4 came out, and then now we have like the newer ones for 4, a couple of different variations. If you guys been living under a rock, if you're a Funko fan, you obviously know about the Eddie and how that blew up, because obviously Eddie was a very popular character. He dies, suppose he dies, and then now that pop is like a grail. which was a normal common, well, Target exclusive pop, and now it's like insane to be released. But don't go crazy because there's a lot of rumors and things that that's going to restock, and I'm sure it probably will because Target always restock stuff. But yeah, people that they don't have, which totally that kid. Now again, he's new to the season, so it's not like
they make him in a mystery mini though, which I have.
Yeah. All right. So then that probably gives you more like a good feeling that he will be made into a full size pop. I would think maybe it's like a con or something. Who knows? But definitely, he's definitely a character. I mean, obviously, they don't make Vec. Do they make Vec?
No, they don't, which is insane because like you two
Vecna or number one as himself. Like the
I don't, and it's not like that was like a secret that needed to be kept. He was in the trailer. I'm surprised.
I was gonna say was he, but yeah, he was.
To me, that's like the big one. Like, what the heck? Where's that Funko Pop?
Yeah. But I think it's, and now we've talked about how Funko does love when things are popular, like Squid Game and places like, and things like that. That I totally see them pumping out more different characters because of the popularity of the show. Even though the show has always been popular, but we all know that it's at an all-time right now.
Because they normally really made a line and called it a day. There was some comics,
and it was usually a pretty big line though. Like I have a lot. I don't even have every one, but I have a lot of one season and a lot of the other season. And they usually do, and it's great because there's certain outfits that fit perfectly to that season, and like because for the most part the season is held within a few days or whatever it may be. So like they don't really change outfits much. So like you make like you got the thinking cap Dustin now, like that's what he's wearing the whole time, like things like that. So they could totally keep expanding on this line. I think they will. I don't think they're going to stop. But the Vecna for sure, and even his normal Henry character, like both of those, and he's got a look, so it's not like he would look like a plain pop. He would still look pretty cool, and is even in like that white outfit would be pretty awesome. They should totally do that.
We need a Murray pop.
I was gonna say, this is thinking way too much for giving Funko credit that they would do something like this. But the scene with 11 with number one up or the other way around when he's doing it to her, both of those would be like an amazing type of scene, like that you're like, holy crap. So yeah, that'd be cool. You said who?
Murray.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't have a pop.
Like, he was a great. I was gonna say the other guy was a cool character, but he's not like enough to get a pop out of him. But of course it's the dude from Game of Thrones, which as soon as I saw him, I recognized him actually. And I looked over and I was like, that's the guy with no name or whatever. I like sat there and she's like, wait, what? And then she had to see him again. And I was like, yeah, he just doesn't have the hair. But his character was cool. But yeah,
I agree.
Murray's great. I mean, he's a big enough one, that for sure. And he has a look too. Like you could totally get him one. The kid, the pizza kid for sure. But those will probably be the most obvious, I think, because we pretty much got the most of the other ones.
Yeah, we do.
And at least we got a version of them. We don't need multiple versions. I'm happier with them just doing every character rather than one character a bunch of times, which I think they slowly are doing better with Stranger Things, because in season 1, for instance, we had like 4 or 5 11s. Now we're only getting like maybe 2.
The only person they go overboard on is Dustin, even though he is one of my favorite characters. And then Dustin,
they do usually do that, yeah.
He has like versions of them. 3 or 4 pops this season, and they all basically look the same.
Yeah, that's the only other thing is when they look the same. It's like, come on, like at least with 11, like you got her in the gown, you got her in the t-shirt, you got her.
Well, that's like the one thing I actually love about this line more than like any TV line. Actually, is you're right. Like you said, like you can tell which seasons they're from, and that isn't always necessarily the case or anything. Like Game of Thrones, for example. Like I have a few Jon Snow pops. That basically all looks the same. You only know they look different because Funko got more detailed in their pops.
Yeah, because they're older poppers than newer ones.
Yeah, like you could have made a different looking one. It's not like he always looked exactly the same.
No, yeah.
So that's one thing I think they've really done strongly with the Stranger Things.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great line. I've always loved it. It's one of the first lines that I was getting like in complete lines or getting more of, because that show I loved. And then I like Game of Thrones was one of the other ones. Like when I was like, okay, I want to get every character, and I didn't. I only got like a certain ones, but Stranger Things was one that I try to keep up with, except for the last 2 seasons, because I started getting no room and I had so many different pops. That's when I kind of slowed down on it. But this new one definitely has some pretty awesome. And that 2-pack with Hopper and Joyce, that thing is sick. Like, so like those are cool. like that they do like really good looking pops, but definitely
I'm just
need
happy I
back to that.
pre-ordered the Eddie. It's a one-time pre-ordering went, my
I don't
way.
have it, man. I'm so mad. I just hope it restocks because
I do think it
funny
will.
story. I gotta tell you guys, I've told Charlie already a couple times, but I gotta tell the listeners, I guess, to end it here. But I saw the quick shot on Instagram. A picture was like, oh, the Eddie, whatever, off for sale, whatever. And initially was like, I don't know why, but I thought it was Eddie Van Halen, which I know they make a pop of him and he's like got a guitar and whatever. And I was like, oh, is it the same one like being restocked or it's another one? I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I pass on. I didn't look that it said Stranger Things. I didn't read it at all. It was definitely like at work or something where I just like seen it and kept it moving. And it was that pop. And I'm like, bro, what? Like I would have 100% grabbed this pop. And like I'm now pissed. But I have a Funko order coming because I ordered the Winter Soldier sodas and I think I have like the Will, Mike, and I think one other
Lucas.
one. And yeah, and there's like 3 or 4 that I got. I didn't get every single one that was out, but I got like the majority of like some of the main kids. Because I like, you know what, I love those ones. I've had them before, so I might as well get them for this
Yep.
season. Um, but let us know your thoughts. If you guys are Stranger Things fans, we love hearing back from you guys. If not, check it out. It's an amazing show. I'm excited for the next season. We don't know when the hell that's going to be, but hopefully sooner rather than later, because
I
definitely want to see how this ends.
And we're getting a
Stranger
Stranger Things spinoff too. So that'll be
yes. That was not it. So yeah, it's fun. It's gonna be great. But that's gonna be it for this episode this week. Definitely packed with a lot of stuff. But we'll be back again, and next week we'll go back into some news. We have a couple other topics we want to bring up, a couple new lines, not new lines, but like lines that we haven't talked about before. We want to bring up as well. But so kind of based on how the news goes and stuff, we'll throw some more of those at you guys next time. But yeah, Charlie, you can end it with letting people know where to find us and all that stuff.
So yeah, once again, if you're listening on our podcast platforms, thank you so much. But make sure you head over to our YouTube channel where we said earlier, not only do we have exclusive content like NFT pack rips and we'll probably have some soda videos coming up and whatnot, but we also for this, you'll see visuals of all the things we're talking about. And we just really love your support on both platforms. So when you come over, just please give us a subscribe and just smash the like buttons on our videos so you can help us with the algorithm so other people can see it, so it can continue to help us grow. And like I said, just comment on our videos, tell us what you're thinking about not only the episode, but what other things you like us to talk about. We've gotten some great suggestions before that we've actually used, and just keep bringing on, because there could be things that we aren't even on our radar to talk about. And we're like, oh, wait, we should be talking about that. So yeah, just, thank you for your support on all the platforms.
Absolutely. But that's going to be it for this week. So everyone take it easy and have a good one.
Later, everyone.